Hi! A couple of weeks ago, we put out a video doing a musical analysis on the track Foreign Spies by The Smile. And in order to supplement the analysis and not get a copyright strike, we decided to recreate the entirety of the track from scratch in Ableton Live. And the idea was to only use stock Ableton devices and synths, so we can share the project with you. So you can go download it from the link in the description, it's absolutely free. And you can see how each track is processed and mixed, and hopefully also learn some cool sound design and production techniques along the way. Luckily, Foreign Spies is an entirely synth-centric track. No drums, no guitars, and this is gonna make our lives much easier. So, let's get started with some synthesizer sound design. Most of the synth sounds in Foreign Spies are this kind of vintagey analog synth patches, and they're all based around a common recipe. A single common envelope for the amp and the filter, key tracking of the filter cutoff frequency, waveform modulation, usually in the form of pulse width modulation, but we will also explore other possibilities, and pitch modulation, mostly vibrato, but it can also be more interesting. So we're broadly aiming at something like this. York and Greenwood seem to prefer using various Prophet synths both on Radiohead and Smile tracks. You can spot them in the Basement videos and other more recent live appearances. Now, I don't want to fuss so much about specific synthesizers, and I don't want you to think you need a Prophet to create these kinds of sounds. As long as you understand the basic principles of how they're created, you can pretty much use any synthesizer that's got a couple of LFOs and a way to modulate the wave shape of the oscillator. So, as I said before, we're only going to be using Ableton synths. Mainly wavetable, but there's a bit of operator and a bit of meld in there as well. But it's mostly wavetable because of its flexibility and its workflow. And I think it's got a very nice and clear user interface, and you can really see what's going on every step of the way. But obviously, everything that we're going to say applies to pretty much every analog, virtual analog, and wavetable synth out there. So, let's dive in. First, we need a waveform that we can modulate. For this, let's initially use a pulse that we can apply pulse width modulation to. In wavetable, we can use the pulse PW wavetable and set the wavetable position somewhere in the middle where it starts sounding less squarey and more nasal. In an analog or virtual analog synth, you'll just need to adjust the equivalent pulse width or shape parameter. Now, the next step is to apply the amp envelope to the filter cutoff. If that's not possible in your synth, then make sure the amp envelope and the filter envelope are very similar. Next, find a good position for the filter cutoff frequency and set the filter key tracking to about 50% or half tracking. This means that when we play higher notes, the filter frequency moves up accordingly. Okay, so now we should have something like this. And by messing around with the filter cutoff, the envelope to filter amount, and the envelope itself, we can get various different variations. Now we need to add some movement. The most obvious way is to add vibrato. For this, we need a sine wave LFO at around 4 Hz, and we apply this very lightly on the pitch of our oscillator. For added flavor, we can add a bit of delay to the LFO so it kicks in gradually. For even more movement, we need to modulate the waveform of the oscillator itself. In this case, the pulse width of this pulse waveform. For this, we use another very slow LFO at around 0.2 Hz. And specifically in wavetable, we apply it to the waveform position. In a more traditional analog synth, we would apply the LFO to the pulse width or shape parameter. Now, we don't necessarily need to stick to pulse waves. We can try modulating the shapes of other waves and get equally interesting results. For instance, this saw wavetable gives us a very similar sound. Finally, for the harsher sounds in the track, there is yet another way to create movement and texture. Once again, this is pitch modulation, but this time we apply a very fast, random LFO to the oscillator's pitch. The LFOs in wavetable are not fast enough for that though, but luckily we can achieve the same effect by using the noise mode in unison. This results in this very gritty and harsh texture. So, with these general principles in mind, we can create pretty much every synthesizer on the track. Now, before we talk about the vocals, if you're enjoying this video, please leave us a like and consider subscribing. It really helps our channel grow and we can keep making videos like this in the future. So, for the vocals, we used RipX DAW to rip Tom York's vocals from the original track. Full disclosure, RipX reached out to us and offered us the software for free if we had any good video ideas to try it out on. And this was a perfect opportunity, and it actually did a very good job and super fast in about 2 minutes or so. All we need to do is drag the audio file into the main window inside RipX and then select the instruments we wanted to separate. It will then start processing the audio for a couple of minutes or so. When it's done processing, we get a visual representation of the track on a piano roll in the main window, with the different instruments in different colors. You can click on each individual track here on the left to see it on its own, plus you can solo them. You can then manipulate the audio in pitch and time, even with polyphonic sources. And you can also add a whole host of effects from the panel on the right. Then when you're ready, you go to export and you can export each stem separately, and that's how we can get the vocal track. So if you're interested in stem separation and polyphonic note editing, you should definitely go check it out. Thanks again to RipX. Now, with the vocals back in Ableton, it's time to add some reverb. In the original track, the vocals sound to me like they're also going through a very fast delay before they hit the reverb. And the reverb itself sounds very thick and almost lo-fi. This is just speculation, but I thought it would be fun to try and run everything through a Space Echo style delay/reverb, since Radiohead have extensively used this in the past. So, first we create an effect track with 2 parallel chains. One is going to be our dry vocals, and the other the Space Echo. So we insert an echo plugin, and then turn the output to 100% wet. And now we do a fast dotted 16th note pattern with plenty of feedback. Also, we can offset the left and right delay times a bit to give it a bit more stereo width. Then we slap some reverb on top, filter out the bottom and the top end, and then gently squeeze everything with a compressor. And it sounds like this. Now, the cherry on top is to duck this echo using the dry vocals. So when York is singing, the echo disappears and we don't drown everything in endless reverb. To do this, we insert one more compressor in the wet chain and we turn the side chain on. And we use the signal from the dry vocals chain of our effects track as the side chain input. So when Tom York sings, the wet echo signal is squashed, and when he stops, it rises back up again, creating this massive space. It's important to note here that we need to set the release time to something appropriately long so that the reverb swells back up nicely and not abruptly, like this. For the overall reverb of the track, I've decided to stick to the whole Space Echo idea, because why not? So I've made a return track, placed an echo inside. The settings here are similar in principle to the settings from the vocal chain previously, and then send the various synths to this return according to taste. I haven't sent the vocals obviously, or the bass, or the very percussive arpeggiated synth to keep them more clear and defined in the mix. Now, for some final touches to the mix. I've added some volume automation here and there, mostly fade-outs. a bit of delay on the arpeggio at the end. And for even more space echo vibes, I used another on the bridge lead synth to create a bit of a chaotic feedback soundscape. This is another parallel wet chain where the feedback is automated to go above 100% and create these distorted bursts of noise, and then pull back below 100% before it gets too much out of control. So, time to listen to the final track. Don't forget, you can download the project from the link in the description and mess around with it yourselves. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave us a comment below, or even better, join our Discord server and drop me a message there. We've also made a video analyzing the rhythm and the harmonies of Foreign Spies, so go check it out after this one. But now, here it is. Foreign Spies by The Smile, recreated in Ableton Live. Enjoy!
Every time I